It's v.h.s.x. What do you mean?
Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're reacting and having a discussion about a video from ShinyCatMae titled DBD is not a party game. And from what I'm understanding, I mean, I have to agree right off the bat. There is a lot of people that do call it a party game, but there is a lot of evidence to kind of prove that it is not. And hopefully this video will add a little bit more context to why a lot of us believe that it isn't. And this video was suggested by one of you guys in the Discord community, so if you want to join the Discord community and suggest videos or talk about different topics, whether it be DBD or otherwise, there is a link in the description. Just make sure that you go ahead and accept the rules by hitting the knife emoji at the bottom of the rules so you can actually talk with the rest of us. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. If you want to watch the original video, it'll be linked in the description, of course, and it'll have a lot of context for, you know, why we're talking about this. But what I want to add on to is a couple of parts that were mentioned in this portion of the video.
To make a video talking about every practical gap shot you can land on every map with Deathslinger, but that's because I have an unhealthy hyperfixation, and that contributes to my mechanical knowledge of the game. Newcomers and largely casual players will encounter things that they aren't told by either the game or even content creator made guides that contribute to how confusing DBD is, such as, what are perks? Why did the survivor not go down when I hit them after they were unhooked? Why is there a yellow bar under their name? Who is this guy, and why is he always yelling about a box and that he came? Even though DBD has a seemingly simple foundation, the extra layers of complexity and fine-tuning that has gone into refining playstyles over the 9 years that the game has been out contributes to it not being a party game. Most people also do not have the mechanical or encyclopedic skill necessary to play this game well, and I believe that's where a lot of the common frustrations lie.
There it is. So May actually does include like different mechanical, like I would call them pillars almost, for what the game is, because it has so much knowledge that you do need to be able to play at a, I would say, a very good level. And it is covered in the video, so if you want to hear like the specifics on what we're talking about, you can watch the original video. But I'm going to touch on the fact that this by itself already proves that it is not a party game. Because what party game has this level of encyclopedic knowledge, perk knowledge, like this deep, like sort of ocean of information that you just kind of have over time from trial and error and things like that, in comparison to like Mario Kart, Mario Party? Like those to me are party games. Even you could say Fortnite too in some cases. I would say it probably does have a level of depth, but I personally just play it, at least for me, I just play it as a third-person shooter, and I don't really engage with the building aspects. I like to play with the no build option, because I just like to shoot things. So, regardless, the fact of the matter is like, because of the fact that there is so much information, it's actually insane. The fact of the matter is, it indeed is, I would have to say it's not a party game. I still to this day don't agree with it. I never thought it would be. I mean, there is no MMR systems really in party games from my knowledge. It could be, maybe I don't know that, that could be proven, probably wrong. But at least from what I've heard, or at least from what I've seen with games like that, I have never really heard that there was like an MMR system for that. So going off of that alone, and knowing that this game is raising up your MMR by the amount of kills you're getting on killer, or by how you escape on survivor, being through the exit gate, being how you raise your MMR level, then that would mean that wins and losses do matter to some extent to be able to rank you against other people that are, as it says, skill based, right? Matchmaking. The fact of the matter is, it's still trying to match you against people it thinks that you can pretty much go up against and potentially win against. And even furthermore, the fact of the matter is, there's so much information that this game has. I keep talking about it extensively, and I know that there's probably not that many that really care enough to learn it, just because of just that's how it is with a game like this. Not every single person is going to be willing to take the plunge and actually try to learn everything, or not really learn everything, because we're not trying to go to that far, but learn what you need to know. I can imagine that they kind of just, sweep it under the rug and say it's a party game, so why should I,
DBD is too complex to be a party game, and yet a lot of people don't have the time to dedicate to improving at the title because they treat it as if it is a party game. Where I see most people getting frustrated with is in their lack of understanding of the game's base mechanics, often because they are so overloaded with other information that they aren't able to explain why they lost. When I play Killer, one of my biggest complaints is that the gens disappear too quickly, but quite often I fail to understand that I made a bad decision in terms of how I've controlled the map, and that I simply tried to play too nice.
That is, I have to say, I disagree to an extent, because it is a case-by-case basis. But overall, that is correct. I do think that a lot of decisions that you make are going to dictate how a game goes, and that's usually why I'm very quick to point out and why I'm very adamant on trying to improve at the game. And even in the past, I've offered coaching, I've coached before, I've even done, like, you know, match reviews of my own gameplays early on in the YouTube channel, as you guys are probably unaware of. And I've even conducted a couple of match reviews for some of you guys who have submitted gameplays to be reviewed on this channel as well. So I am one of the first people to say that there is going to be a lot of decision making that may lead to certain outcomes in the match. That goes without saying. Now, the problem is that obviously you could play very well and you can still end up losing 3 to 4, like just 3 gens at minimum usually, or 2 gens at minimum, just because of how fast it is. And there is not a lot you can really do, you know, in that situation. You can down them as quickly as possible. You can down people back to back as quickly as possible. You'll still see 2 gens go up. There's just really nothing you can do, and the game is already halfway through, and you're like, well, I don't know what else to do besides utilizing the strategies that everybody doesn't like, apparently. Now, in this case, obviously, playing too nice is a whole nother situation. I know a lot of people like to do that. I've never been about that. That's never been my play style. I've always been trying to win my games. I play very competitively, so I'm always trying to improve at my game, improve at my killers, improve at whatever I can. So to me, you know, a lot of the time it could be that I am playing as well as I think I can. I mean, I've downed them as efficiently as humanly possible, but it just still seems like there is not enough time in the match. But yeah.
Also have to understand that some games are unwinnable, whether that's because of map RNG, the killer that I'm playing, or accepting that I'm not always bringing the strongest perk builds. It doesn't stop me from complaining that games can feel unwinnable, but if I take a moment, like I can with writing this script, and view the complaints that I've had from a more learning perspective, it's pretty clear that I still have a lot to understand about this game. When I play Survivor, one of my biggest weaknesses is being able to buy time on the map efficiently by looping correctly. I understand how most killer powers work and the practical counterplay to them, but my hands don't understand that mechanically. I have a decent grasp on the macro state of the game, and I have the ability to find generators on almost every map, but I easily get frustrated when I'm found by the killer first, or if I get into a scenario where my team is slugged multiple times in order to lock in the 4K. But there are situations where I understand that the killer does need to slug. My team is sabotaging hooks so they can't pick anyone up, or my team is constantly hovering for flashlight and pallet saves, or there's another one nearby, so it might even make sense for the killer to maintain their pressure by starting another chase immediately. Any killer that is paying a modicum of attention will not pick up survivors here. And heck, if the killer wants to win their game, sometimes they will leave survivors on the ground to create the most pressure at the right parts of it. Some killers also have a power that naturally lends itself to slugging, such as the Oni or the Twins. Some killers are also completing their adept challenges and need to slug for the 4K so that they complete that achievement. In every one of these circumstances, I am both frustrated by slugging, but completely sympathize with them because that's what I would do too. The only time that I'm not a fan.
Now, I do agree with that idea, and I'm glad to hear that there are people out there who can sit there and actually be objective and understand that, yeah, they kind of need to do this strategy, or that this is the most effective thing to do. You know, I rarely play Survivor. I really don't find it that enjoyable. But when I have played Survivor, I am fully aware of those strategies and of those things, and I can look at a match from where I'm standing, because I'm usually going to be on the gen or something. And I'll look at the HUD, I'll look at who's on gens and what, and I'm like, I can kind of guess, like, yeah, this is probably not going to go well. They're going for a fresh hook on somebody else, and they're probably not going to have enough time to get to this gen, and they're probably going to lose another one, and they're kind of forced into this situation. And I can analyze it from that perspective as a killer player on the side of the survivor, and depending on what strategy this decide to use, I will then say, that's the right thing to do. They should go after this person instead. And to me, that would make a lot more sense. And I'm glad to, hear that there are some self-aware people out there that at least understand when they are playing that side that there are things you need to do, And maybe it's because they do play killers so they can understand that, but obviously it is what it is.
Another strategy is when it is the killer strategy from the start of the game. That much is annoying, but it's also an exceedingly rare case. Tunneling is also frustrating, but at least it gives me a chance to test my abilities in Chase, and if I lose quickly, I just go into the next match. Or
I will say I might be in the minority, but I actually preferred to be tunneled when I was playing Survivor, because a lot of the time I was on the gens and basically doing nothing all game besides being on the gen. And either I save, heal, back to gen, save, heal, back to the gen, or something of that combination. I didn't really feel like I was really engaging with the game because I wasn't really being chased and therefore being tested to see if my skill really holds up to where I thought it could be, especially around that time and the 400 hours that I have played on Survivor. The fact of the matter is, I had looked up a lot of guides. I wanted to employ those things that I've learned and see and test myself and see if those things would be applicable. And of course, in a lot of situations, it led to my teammates just being terrible, and then they ended up dying, and I indirectly get killed in some way, shape, or form as a result. So it really wasn't that interesting to me personally. But I will say that from my perspective, I think tunneling is the most fun way that you can experience the game, because of the fact that as a chased one, as somebody who wants to be chased, that is the way to do it. I'm like, hey, perfect, I can be in chase now, finally. Because otherwise I'm gonna be on the gen across the entire map just sitting there watching a bar fill. So I would take the alternative any day.
Shut the game off if it's really getting to me. But I think that perspective, even as terrible of a Survivor player as I am, does come from my hours of playing killer comparatively. And I would also like to point out that I have made over 200 videos on DBD and have 1,300 hours invested into it. I am above the average player and consumer of Dead by Daylight material. In its execution, I'd say that DBD is actually closer to League of Legends or Rainbow Six Siege in the way that you can queue up with your friends. And
I think we could even make an even bigger comparison. We can say that DBD is a lot like Rainbow Six Siege and like For Honor, which I would say in a lot of ways it is a lot like For Honor. And for those of you who played For Honor in the past or even currently play it now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, be glad that you don't. I'd rather not get into it, but I will. So one of the first common things is the toxic communities are definitely parallels to that. The overabundance of ego, especially when your opponent is utilizing something that is, I don't know, super brainless and mindless. In that example for Honor back when I played, light spamming was quite powerful, especially because on the console version was locked at 30 frames or something like that. So a lot of the time you just did not have the frames to react to actual light attacks. So they would spam it and then it would get easy damage in, because how else, can you react if you can't see it? And then they would lose their minds and have ego and spam emotes and things like that. And sounds a lot like when you're going against survivors in DBD, because they have a massive ego for just pre-dropping and running, pretty mindless gameplay, and utilizing second chance perks that only activate when you go down. So really interesting. And in a lot of ways also, like For Honor, is the idea that your opponent is going to have a lot of things that you really have to kind of guess or assume that they have, because if you're familiar with the characters you're going up against. So for example, in DBD, you can probably assume they have Dead Hard, Decisive, and Off the Record, in the same way that in For Honor, you're probably going to be going against a shaman who's trying to make you bleed or something like that to get the bite off, or you're going against a warden knight character that's going to shoulder bash you, so you want to be able to dodge, but then they're also fully aware that you want to dodge and they might grab you as you go to dodge. So it's one of those things where there's counterplay and for different things, and it's all because of the knowledge that you have of the game and the characters that will therefore dictate if you're able to have a higher chance of winning or not.
You can do goofy things in your matches, but goofing off without the required mountain of foundational knowledge will cause you to lose matches often. You're not playing in a sweaty way per se, but you do have to play to a certain standard to remain competitive. If I get quick peeked on a corner, I know that I lost that fight because I didn't pre-fire, or I held still after they clearly found my location. If I get out-traded in bot lane, it's because I underestimated my capabilities as a player and got caught in a bad position. Remaining competitive in any of these games requires a certain level of dedication that forces players to make it one of the only games that they play. That or seek unemployment, further exacerbated by how some of the top content creators for Dead by Daylight agree that you pass beginner status after you reach 1,000 hours of total playtime.
Oh no, I disagree with that entirely. I don't believe that 1K hours is passing the beginner stage. I argue that is the beginner stage. 1,000 hours, in my opinion, is the beginner stage. Like, you need to reach like 1,000 hours, then you start passing 1,000 hours, then you can be considered intermediate, I guess. So maybe I am agreeing. I don't know. Maybe the terminology I must have screwed up somewhere. I don't know. Either way, you know, I've had this discussion before because, like, you know, a lot of people get a really massive ego when you talk about hours played and when we talk about just, like, you know, the MMRs and everything like that. It's really hard to have objective conversations in a lot of ways, because a lot of players for some reason just have a massive ego about it, and we've had conversations like that before with other people, and it's been like that. Like, they'll make a statement that has no basis in reality. It's factually disproven with a lot of different things, but they claim because, oh, I have like 800 hours, so therefore I know what I'm talking about. I have 1,000 hours, so therefore I know what I'm talking about. It's like, no, you're still not you still don't have the knowledge that's required to understand what we're saying. You're at an MMR level that is available to you, that is capable, but you're not at a level where you can have seen teams that can do X, Y, and Z, and therefore it works at your level in your personal anecdotal experience, but not in everyone's experience because of that. And yeah, and it is interesting to see a lot of creators that are talking about DVD when they have about 1,000 hours. It is very interesting because, you know, we have the big names that have 10,000. And then you got, like, you know, a couple of small fries like myself that have at least 3K or more. And then we have a couple of people with 1K. And then also, like, kind of seeing the same issues that we've been seeing even at the 3K hours or more. And it's pretty insane to see that, because, you know, that means that the topics that I'm discussing, and then that also means that, like, the things that I'm talking about and what I'm hearing about are consistent across the board. And I think that means that there is a lot of problems going on with this game, and it is kind of insane to think about.
Does that all sound like a party game to you? So this loops back around to the initial question of who is Dead by Daylight for, and I'd say that the game is for people who are looking for something complex to sink their teeth into. It is an investment of time and patience that gradually peels away into being a really fun game when it works as designed, with its dour complexity contributing to a seemingly infinite skill ceiling branching in multiple directions. There are plenty of learning opportunities along the way, and literally thousands of ways for the game to be played, with a plethora of community provided resources to help you learn about its intricacies. Mr. Taterhead is probably one of the most dedicated Survivor players that I know of, what with his several hour-long breakdowns on how to play Survivor on virtually every map.
Like, I have to say that Mr. Taterhead was one of the few channels that I did study back when I was trying to play Survivor in the 400 hours. And that is the skills that I wanted to employ in my own matches. Obviously, I was not able to. And, you know, ever since really around that, like, sort of time, and I had eventually just stopped playing Survivor entirely. Because I personally just don't really enjoy it that much. I will have to say, I always will have, like, that sort of perspective, and I will always recommend Mr. Taterhead in every conversation talking about how to improve as Survivor, because the resources do exist, and there's just a lot of players that just choose not to engage with it. And I think that that is one of the biggest issues with the game as a whole, is that there's, like, the information is out there to improve. I even offer that information for Killer, and instead we end up getting a lot of the same kind of rhetoric. You know, you guys are fully aware of it. I don't really need to get too into depth about all that stuff, but we hear a lot of just, like, really terrible takes in a lot of ways, and you know, we really should at least be able to rely on people that do have the information to be able to improve at our killers and whatnot. And I'm always an advocate for trying to improve. Now, obviously, the game is not in the best state right now, so obviously I wouldn't blame anybody for not even trying to play the game, not even trying to improve at the game or do anything like that, because it's just not very friendly for even beginners, not very friendly for even intermediates, or even the veterans are even starting to step away now because of just how bad the game really has become. And I predicted this would happen. I predicted this would happen, unfortunately. So here we are.
Darva provides general killer tips and has an entire website dedicated to all of your beginner questions, including whom to unlock first and what builds you should try on every killer. Puffalope has a video that talks about goals to reach as a survivor player depending on your relative playtime. Hens has common showcases for what top level play looks for individual killers, and every killer also has its own pool of known content creators that main that character specifically, and a lot of them also have their own dedicated individual guides on how to play just that killer. There are so many moving parts that mix and match in between every game of DBD, making it so that no two matches really should play out the same. The individual skill and mechanical ability of every player can lead to some really impressive moments, and even if I don't consider myself one of the best Deathslinger players in the world, I can still feel satisfied in the mechanical understanding that I've developed over the hours that I've invested into playing him specifically. If Deathslinger were an easier character to play, I don't think playing him would have turned into such a hyperfixation for me. It's an old party trick at this point, but did you know that you can shoot through this? Felix didn't think I could. This is something that I have learned through putting far too many hours into this game, but in that same vein, I'm getting rewarded massively in some extremely niche scenarios as
That right there is one of the reasons why I main killer to this day. It's because each killer just has so much depth that right there is an example of it. Like, you can differentiate yourself from a beginner or an intermediate or, you know, even advanced into mastery once you actually start to utilize things that nobody else really can do. You know, that applies with Wesker clips, as you saw here with the Slinger clip. Things like that are what make killers so interesting and so engaging and so fun in a lot of ways. And as a Ghostface main myself, you know, as much as I would like to be one of the sort of like well-known pool of Ghostface players, like, it would be nice to be able to say that, but either way, the only thing that I would just say, this is just my own perspective on it, the only thing that kind of stinks as a Ghostface player is, like, it's really hard to be flashy in a lot of ways, because honestly, I wouldn't, if I were to make a compilation, I wouldn't even know what to put in it, because, like, I figured that with Ghostface as a character, to me, that you can, like, the only way you can really know if somebody's really mastered the character is, like, their movements and how they sort of flow into the match and how they sort of play in itself. I think, you know, and it's very hard to kind of glance at it and go, yeah, that's a master right there, like, that's a pro. Like, it's very hard to do that in comparison to other people that have more flashy mains, like Wesker especially, which has, like, many hug techs and other fancy things that they can do that can be clipped and then put onto to different platforms to sort of brag about, which is its own thing, but still, that's just my thoughts on it.
Payment for the time that I have spent. Other Deathslinger players will hit shots like this one on Nostromo, or this one on the Ironworks of Misery. How do these people know that these work? Because of the time that they've spent on fine-tuning the game. Friend of the channel, Late Night Nomad, regularly hits clips like these, like, oh my god, just have my babies already. So when I say that DBD has an infinite skill ceiling, this is what I mean, and these are just examples for one of the 41 killers in the game. With the possibility of reaching such mechanical heights, and with an ever-expanding list of variables to impact a match, a player's end goal is to become one of those players that understands Dead by Daylight completely, or is at least extremely talented at one aspect of it, since, you know, I like playing other games too sometimes. Either way, when everyone is chasing the dragon of becoming the best looper in the world on Survivor, or becoming the most talented killer main on their character of choice, they should have something to strive towards. Having a gargantuan skill ceiling and giving both sides the opportunity to learn from mistakes or develop greater counterplay naturally lends this game to requiring players to invest a ton of time into it to get good at it, which means that the game is complex, which also means that most of the people that play Dead by Daylight are not actually good at the game. League of Legends players will be familiar.
I 100% agree with that statement. There are so many people that play DBD that have a massive ego and truly believe in their minds that they're amazing at the game. and they are not, and that's perfectly fine. I think that there should be a level of awareness when it comes down to something like that, that you're probably not as good as you think you are, unless proven otherwise. And then I think that that's why a lot of us are trying to reach leaderboards and trying to kind of prove ourselves with streaks and prove ourselves with data and prove ourselves, you know, in different ways, shapes and forms, world records and things like that, to sort of prove like this is the definitive person that you can go to for this particular character. And I also think that there's a lot of like content creators that play those characters ineffectively and unfortunately have the spotlight when it, and for newer players end up having to like learn from those players that actively are misinforming a lot of people. And it's very unfortunate that that is the case. It is just a side effect of just how content creation works, unfortunately. There are definitely a lot of play of you know, which I have to say, like there's plenty of fantastic creators out there, and that's not to discredit them or say that they're not good creators or not incredible people or anything like that, but more so to say that it is just a shame that people like that are, like, I would say masters of their craft in that kind of way are not really given the same recognition compared to people that play characters ineffectively and yet have a much bigger following. And that is sort of you know, where I stand at with that, at least. And it is a bit unfortunate. At least speaking for myself, at least I would consider myself to be one of the best Ghostface players, arguably. At least, like, especially like being endorsed by a top 6 Ghostface, being shrouded Ghostface as well, a friend of the channel. Definitely I would consider him to be one of the best Ghostface players. So we're both kind of in that pool of like best Ghostface players in the community. So that is kind of cool. And hopefully I can actually get up there in the leaderboard eventually. I think I've kind of slowed down because of the state of the game, but hopefully I can get back on the horse and start reaching the highs. But that is going to be the end of the video for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to become a member to have your name read off at the end of every video, or just want to have access to all the exclusive content that you can't see anywhere else besides the Patreon, you can go ahead and join the Patreon or become a YouTube member to have access to those sort of things. You can also sub on Twitch to also have your name read off as well. And yeah, check out the original video, linked in the description. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned for all my members. I'll see you guys next time. Well, I wanted to go ahead and take some time out to thank all my members from Patreon with Crow King 101, my YouTube members, Majora Jeff, Endire, Evil Peachy YT, Zero Mocker, Christian, Hexdev, and Crow Vader, and for my Twitch subscribers, Cake is the Road, Danica 2002, Final Girl _ Bunny, Acklefin, Chili Cinderace, Zero Mocker, Ginsburg, Johns 117 _ Lovely Ghost TTV, Jar TTV, Zazaboo, and Crow Vader. Just wanted to thank you guys. And if you also want to have your name read off at the end of every video, make sure you join on one of these platforms to get one of those perks, as well as the other perks you get. So appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much.